Hi, guys. I'm glad you are here to join me today for our prayerful meditations. So today I wanted to go through the Daily Examen. This is a tool that has been around for 400 years. So St. Ignatius developed it, and it's a great tool, been around forever. There are a lot of different versions of it because after 400 years, a lot of people tweak it to what works best for them. The version I'm going to go through with you is more of a youth or teen version. It's actually a version that I appreciate the most. Only takes a few minutes at the end of your day to go through, really. And it really puts you in the presence with God. And it is a tool that helps you with your spiritual growth. It's very hard to grow spiritually if you never really acknowledge or work on it in any way, shape, or form. So that's what this does. It's a few minutes at the end of the day to say, hey, how can I do better? What did I do well? And just talk with God. So it's a pretty great tool, actually. And anything that's been around for 400 years must be proven to a certain extent. So let's go ahead and start. The first thing you want to do, and I want to say there's 5 steps, at least as far as I'm concerned, there's about 5 steps, okay? And the first step is to make sure that you are in the presence of God. So you can do this a couple different ways. Now, keeping in mind, being in the presence of God is anywhere and everywhere because God is everywhere. So it's really getting our mind in the right place so that we are in the presence of God. Because if you are in a bed all of the time, God is there with you all of the time too. But you may have to, in order to remove yourself from the hustle and bustle and craziness of life as it is, do something to acknowledge that or put yourself in the right frame of mind. You can light a candle. You can say a prayer that is very comforting to you and always remind you of God's presence. For me, it would be the Lord's Prayer because that's something we say often in church and we know it quite well. You can focus on nature and plant life and even just a bouquet of flowers. It can be enough to remind you you are in the presence of God. So whatever it may be that you do, even if you're comfortable with it, the sign of the cross is a way to remind you that you are in the presence of God. So that would be number 1. So number 2 would be to review everything that happened throughout your day with a spirit of gratitude. So if you woke up and the sun was shining, think about it as how thankful you are that the sun was shining. Had a good breakfast, maybe got a lot done at work, heard a child's laughter while you were at the store, got to do a Zoom meeting with your grandkids and got to see them, or maybe you get to do a Zoom meeting with some of your friends from school, whatever it may be. So just look at it in a spirit of gratitude, how grateful you are that you have it. Keeping in mind that we should even be grateful for the fact that we are able to take a breath, the fact that we have a roof over our heads and food on our plates. All of these things are so important and we take them for granted very much. So look at everything with a spirit of gratitude. And don't forget to also view the times that you maybe shared God's love with other people and be grateful for the opportunity to do that. Maybe you were able to go outside and draw hearts on the sidewalk for people, or maybe you were able to text or call a friend. Those are times where be grateful for that, because that thing you did for the friend or for the people who are walking down the road and they see the hearts matters a lot to them. And you were lucky enough to have the opportunity to do it. So be grateful for that. So the third step is to picture God's unconditional love and the truth of that. So in order to picture and see God's unconditional love, sometimes I will think of somebody who always gave me unconditional love. So maybe I'll think of my mother's smile, or I will think of a baby smiling. Or if you have pets, if you have dogs or animals in any way, a dog greeting you at the door, that is always unconditional love. So you can think of those things that represent unconditional love to you and relate that back to the gratefulness that you have for God's love for you, because God's love is unconditional as well. And all of those little beautiful things that happen throughout your day is a way to acknowledge God's love for you and be thankful for it. So the next step, step 4, is to ask yourself, how were you open to God's presence? And in this case, pay close attention to those feelings that go throughout your day. So let's say you were a little annoyed because you were at school or in class and you were trying to tell somebody about the last class you were in, and they were very quiet, not saying much. And you were just annoyed, so you just stopped talking to them or listening. Be open to that annoyed feeling or that negative feeling. Maybe you're even a little bit angry about it. And think about it and pray that God's Spirit of truth is with you. And maybe the more you think about it, you realize that that person might have been a little sad or upset over something. And maybe instead of just stopping and not talking anymore, maybe the right answer would have been to say, hey, you're not saying much. Is everything okay? So acknowledge those negative feelings and acknowledge those positive feelings too. Let's say you were in class and you started singing. It's the first time you've had a music class and you realized you had incredible joy with this music class. Pay attention to that as well and be thankful for it. And then also think, well, if this gives me so much joy, maybe it's something I should do more. Maybe it spreads God's love. The question throughout all of it is, how do you spread God's love? What can you do? What can you say? How can you act to spread God's love? And there's, depending on what you've gone through that day or that week or whatever it may be, it'll change constantly. But that's kind of the point of a spiritual growth tool. Our growth changes. And that's a wonderful thing. Otherwise, this wouldn't work very well. So the very last step is to picture being with Jesus. Now you can think of your favorite painting of Jesus and do it that way. You can, if you have trouble picturing Jesus's face, then you can just picture his presence sitting next to you and picture actually talking with Jesus and then asking Jesus for what you need, asking for that forgiveness, for that grace, for that consolation for whatever it is you need, asking for help for people who are sick, who maybe you didn't get a chance to say anything to them, asking for any mercy, anything that God gives, and he will give it to you. And do that, and as long as it's taken me to say all of this, I think the prayer itself actually takes less time. So please do this in the evenings. It is a wonderful way to connect with God and also to grow spiritually. So I hope you get a chance to do it. And if my simplified version seems a little too simplified, I'm not offended. Check it out. There's a ton of different versions online. Have a good day.